Hello, I'm Reverend Rick, and it is my honor to be with you today. We really hope that this video is a blessing to you. And if it is, please consider making a donation. People watch our videos locally when they cannot necessarily come to church throughout the United States and the world. So please join us and click the link below and make a donation. Thank you, and let this be a blessing to you.
Well, we are in for a treat. Reverend Dr. Eloise Oliver, I could say many, many things about her because she has quite a history in this movement of things she's accomplished. But that's of less interest to me. Accomplishments and academic records are less interesting to me than what I see in this woman and what I have witnessed her doing in this church. She took a very small church in Oakland and made it into one of the largest churches in our movement. And she did that because she understands how to teach principle to people to make their lives better. That's her goal. To help us understand how God works in her life and in our lives so that we can be happier, we can be more abundant, we can be more connected with each other, and most importantly, we can be more connected with that spirit that is within us. Reverend Eloise was my first homiletics teacher. Homiletics is the class that teaches you how to preach. It comes from the Latin word homily, which simply means sermons. And I'll tell you, my class knew from the instant we sat down in her classroom that she meant business, that we were going to learn something good, and that we better sit up in our chairs, get the gum out of our mouth, and pay attention to what was happening, because she wasn't brooking any foolishness. There was a woman in our class, we lived in Santa Rosa at the time, the class was in her church in Oakland, and I remember that one of the women in the class got there 15 minutes late, and she was, perspiring. You know how when you're late and you're nervous, you're late, and you know you're going to be late, and you're just anxious, and everything is terrible. And so she comes into the class, and I thought, oh, poor thing. And she started her excuses. She said, well, traffic was bad, and I didn't really know where this church was, and the dog ate my homework, and whatever else she had to say to make it okay that she was going to be late. And Reverend Eloise just looked at her, and she said, I hope you didn't come in here thinking you could give excuses for why you were late. And we knew at that moment that she meant business, and she did. She taught us great things, but the most important thing she taught us was to be honest about who we were, and to be truthful about who we were. And that we didn't need to put on any dog, because what God had done through our lives would help other people in their lives. And that was a great lesson for me, and for all of my classmates. She has students all over the United States that learned from her and were doing what she did, sharing how God worked in their lives. Two of our most fantastic practitioners come from her church, Reverend Brenda and Alfredo Rivera. And you know that if you've talked to Alfredo or Reverend Brenda, these are two truth tellers. They're truth tellers because they learned from a truth teller. So will you join me in welcoming Reverend Dr. Eloise Oliver?
What a day, what a day, what a day. I can't tell you how good I feel. I've been sitting there crying, and I'm easy to cry. And I don't mind it either. My father was, to me, a very mean man, although he gets more sense as I get older. But my father didn't know anything about hormones and times of the month or any of that kind of stuff. And I would just cry as a teenager when I started going through that phase. And Daddy would say, "What's wrong with you?"
I don't know.
Who hit you?
Nobody.
Well, you better shut up before I give you something to cry for. So, what I realize now is Daddy felt helpless when I cried. And because of this burden that's placed on that gender of folks, they feel like they should be able to fix everything. And Daddy couldn't fix me. And he was lost. But the story Reverend Georgia just talked to you about, I didn't get that from the church. I got that from an organization that I signed up for. And I began to realize that the people in the world are teaching what the church ought to be teaching. And it was something that was called EST years ago. And they took your watch and they put black curtains up to the windows so you had no concept of time. And we know that there's no time in God, but we don't know it really. We say there's no time in God, but we don't believe that. But in this program, it was, I don't know if it was 3 days or a week or whatever, but they took our watches. And we had no way of knowing what time it is. So one of the addictions that I had taken on was food addiction. And so I also had taken on, my blood sugar is such that I have to eat at a certain time. So you signed a statement that said you would stay in that room until you were allowed to leave. If you left without permission, then you couldn't come back. And so I signed that statement. And several times I got hungry. My family had a history of diabetes. My father died with no legs. So when I came into religious science, I used to say, they always say, well, you know, diabetes runs in our family. And I said, if diabetes runs in the family, I want to be the door where diabetes runs out. I want to give it a break and let it get out of this family thing. I also had severe allergies. My folks didn't know anything about allergies, and this was back before penicillin, so they didn't know what to do. And so they said that I had a touch of TB, tuberculosis. Somebody in my family, years before me, had died with tuberculosis, so I had a touch of TB. I'd get it, you know, when all the flowers started. And so we had all kinds of superstitions and things, because when people don't know, they don't say I don't know, they just make up a story about that. So anyhow, I was in this room with all these people, and every time I started to feel this hunger in I realize now if I get anxious, I start feeling hungry, but I didn't know that then. So when I would go to the back, they would say, well, you can have a drink of water. I drink water, go back and sit down. An hour or two later, I would go back again, you can have some juice. When they let me eat, it was 10 o'clock that night. When they gave me permission to eat, it was 10 o'clock that night. There's no way I would have signed up for a class for anything that said I couldn't eat for 12 hours. I wouldn't do that. Because I was just, my body couldn't take it, because I had hypoglycemia and I'd have a diabetes, just all kinds of reasons why I couldn't eat. But at that program, I learned that my body does what I tell it to do. It's my body, and it will listen to me. Another time I was late. So all you had to do, if you were 1 minute late or 15 minutes late, you had to wait outside. So I came running up the hall. I was late. This white man was standing on the door, and he saw me running down the hall, and he shut the door in my face. He was racist because he shut the door in my face. This white man shut the door in my face, and he saw me coming down the hall. He shut the door because I was black and blah, 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 blah. I had to stay outside. So when they came to me, the only thing you had to do, they would open the door and say, did you have an agreement to be here at 7? Yes, I had an agreement. Did you break your agreement? Yes, I broke my agreement. Do you agree to make another agreement? Yes. Come on in and sit down. When he got to me, I told my story about the white man who shut the door in my face as I was running down the hall. So the man said, well, what happened? Well, I live in Berkeley, and when I came down Ashby, as soon as I saw the toll plaza, it was blocked, and so that's why I was late. He said, what is your youngest child's name? I said, Jackie. Well, let's take this. Jackie is convicted of a crime, and you found evidence. She's convicted of murder, and you found evidence that she didn't do it. And her trial is 7 o'clock. Do you think you could have got here with that information? Yes, sir. Well, what if the bridge was packed? What if you couldn't? What would you do if you saw all the traffic at the bridge and you had evidence that would save her life? Do you think you could get here? Yes, sir. What if the bridge was out? I said I would drown on the way to San Francisco. I would. First he asked me to demonstrate trying. When I got in, I kept saying I was trying to get here, I was trying to get here, I was trying to get here. So he threw a pencil on the floor and said, all right, show me how you try. I picked up the pencil. No. I didn't say pick up the pencil, I said try to pick up the pencil. I still didn't get what he was trying to teach me. And that's when he told me the story about my daughter, my youngest child, was on trial for murder. Didn't think I could get there. I said, yes, sir. What if the bridge was out? I drowned on the way to San Francisco. He said, listen, when you are committed to do something, the universe backs you up. Now, didn't something tell you to come early? And several times that day, I really had thought about coming to San Francisco early. But I wouldn't do that because I like pretty clothes. I'm a compulsive shopper, so I said, no. If I go early, I'll have too much time, and I'll go shopping, I'll do this, and then I would go on and do something else. And that same thought would come back to me again. And so I learned that day that when the Spirit tells me something, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to call it what God said to me that it is. Now, Reverend Alfredo, the first time I saw him, I told him he was a preacher. And he said, I get tired of you telling me that, because that ain't so. Do y'all think Reverend Alfredo was a preacher? And I had the honor of doing their wedding, and the baby just runs around and tells me, I have pictures of you when you baptized me. And so you don't know how good that makes me feel, is to know that I spoke what God said to me. I had to trust that this is the truth. And those of you who have that intuition, just say it. Just say it. When I pray for people and when I yell myself. Especially if the doctor has given somebody this diagnosis that I'm afraid of myself, and they call it the big C, or whatever they want to call it. I yell when I do my treatment, because who am I talking to? I'm talking to me. I'm talking to me. Because there's only one of us here anyhow. There's only one. garbage that I left outside. The precipitation, I had cut bushes and something, I left the shields out there and they got wet. And it's fused together. And then I went to Home Depot to buy some new ones, and the man said, wait, we got some right here that you can spray on it. And I think it's called Rust-Oleum. And you can spray it on the shields and just leave it. And it'll get loose. I want you to know God is like Rust-Oleum. Spray it on stuff that don't work. Oh, y'all don't know. This choir had set me on fire. Praise God. I said to Brenda, Reverend Brenda, I said to her yesterday, I said, you know what? You have to treat for me because, I've been diagnosed with varicose veins, and I don't know if I can stand on my feet for 2 services because I haven't done that in such a long time. And she did a treatment, and she said, you're going to be all right, Reverend E. And I still didn't get it. I went, during the break, I went in the overflow room out here, put 3 chairs together and stretched my legs out. And I got in here and the choir was on fire. And I commenced to stomp on my feet. That's all you gotta do is help the body. You stomp your feet off the knees with some help because the body is working perfectly all the time. It's simply that when the arteries, when the heart pumps, it hits the beat. But the veins don't have no way to get the blood back, so it needs a little help to push it up the hill. And they were singing, and I got in here and I commenced to stomp, jumping around, and I wrote a bunch of stuff down here. I wrote, and this is the truth, this is the facts. I'm an octogenarian. And another reason I feel good is that you don't know what God is doing in your life. You really don't know what's happening. And everything is important. I have a daughter that has lived in Sacramento for 10 years. And I've been trying to get her to Reverend Georgia's church. And because I was speaking today, she came. She said, I'll be back next week. Next week. I tell my family that I'm like a trail box, that God gave me this bunch of people called the Oliver family to get from not knowing to knowing, to get from doubting to belief. And they come one by one on their own time. I was discouraged because I've been affected at East Bay Church, and it seems like everybody in the world came to hear me except my own family. My ego was bruised because everybody was talking about Reverend Eloise and what she did and all that, but my own folks didn't get it. And so today, she said, I'll be back. So whatever Reverend Georgia does is all right with me. Because that woman is a rebel, much like myself. She's been fighting with the Centers for Spiritual Living ever since I met her. Because she don't play by the rules. They got all kind of rules, the East Bay Church, they had a law that if you don't have 50 members, you cannot be a church. And so the East Bay Church, although the reason it was founded, I asked Dr. Earl Evans, who was the minister on the Hill, to start a church in the flatland. I said, you all white folks got this church up here on this hill, you can't even find it, you can't get here without a car. And if you got a car, at least you know how life works and you got good credit. It's people down in the flatland in Oakland that don't have a car, don't know how life works, and they need to hear this philosophy. He said to me, everything you said is true. I already promised my wife that I'm ready to retire. And when I retire, I'll start a church on a bus line in Oakland. He started a church at 3901 Broadway. And I insist that the church be on a bus line so that the have-nots can find their way.
All right.
So when I went back to the church, I couldn't be a minister. I couldn't start a church. I had to go through ministerial school and all of that. And so by that time, there was another minister at East Bay Church. And it never got, it would get to a few people, 37 people, but it had to be consistent with 50 members. And so the head of the whatever department in Los Angeles said that, well, we have to take that charter because it can't be a church. And someone had taken a class for me on the Hill and was the board president and asked me to come back. And when I came back, they had about 50 chairs out. And so my family helped me. They put out 50 chairs, 50 people came. How many chairs people you need? 50. Put out 50 chairs, 50 people came. Next week, well, let's put out 60 chairs. 60 people came. And every time finally, one of my kids says, well, how many chairs is under there? Because the chairs was under the stage. They said it's 150 chairs. They put out 150 chairs, and 150 people came.
All right.
Woo! And so the church needs to know. So what I want to say to you, what are you asking for? How many chairs? How many chairs are you putting out? If you're asking for rain, did you buy an umbrella? I don't care if the sun is shining. If you ask for rain, come with an umbrella. Come with an umbrella. This last but not least, I talked so much the last time they had to. You know the little hook they have on the TV show? Reverend Georgia almost had to reach out and get me. Because I usually preach with my eyes closed, and I got that from being afraid. I didn't feel worthy of all that was happening. Although I was saved and sanctified and filled with the Holy Ghost, I just didn't know what was going on. And all these people came, and I closed my eyes, because I didn't know what to do. And I recognized that once I closed my eyes, then I could hear. I could hear this voice better, so I kept on closing my eyes. But anyway, it's a long story of how East Bay came to be. What I want to give thanks for right now is the youth ministry. I want to speak a word to parents. Whether you parent because you gave birth or adoption or however you got to be a parent, I want you to know that I have 7 children. And my children were born by the time I was 29 years old. And I had no clue of what I was doing. So I want you to say as a parent, the greatest joy I ever had was with my children. And the greatest sorrow I ever had was with my children. There's a little cylindrical thing. You can order it on Amazon. And it comes with some rocks and some sand and whatever. And this thing is electric. And you put all this rocks and all this sand into this little grinder. And it grinds these rocks. And it just keeps on going until the dirty rocks that was picked up in the streets become a gemstone.
Yes.
And that's how relationships are. You know, whether it's a relationship with your children or your mate, relationships purify you. Because you get something that's going to grind you. You know, it's going to piss you off. And if you love this thing, it's going to purify you. Somebody knows what I'm talking. Just raise your hand.
Yeah.
And so your children is that love thing. You know, if you don't like your husband or your wife, you can just go. That doesn't work either. Because somebody told me that this is a school, that this thing called earth, this life, this humanity stuff, is a school. And we came to this expression. They said you chose your own parents. I don't believe my kids chose me. I used to tell my family, look here, your daddy was crazy and your mama was too. I knew them well. Y'all need to go to therapy. But when I became minister emeritus, I thought, what can I do? People have been on me to write a book, and I said, you know what, Jesus never wrote a book, and neither did Mother Teresa. Most of those people didn't write a book, so people have written about me, but I've never had time to write, or whatever, I just didn't. But anyway, relationships is our way of making peace with our parents. Because whatever you felt for your daddy, you're going to put it on the man in your life. Whether it's your boss or your brother, your husband, whatever it is. If you didn't make peace with your dad, you got to marry him over and over again. Ask me how I know. And if you didn't make peace with your mother, she's going to show up in every female you meet. And so, I wrote an article, and it's called Some Things You Can't Do by Yourself. Some things you can't do by yourself. And I wanted to be able to express relationships. And I was talking to a youth group of young people, and I talked about riding a seesaw. You can't ride the seesaw by yourself. You gotta have somebody on the other end. You can't do double dutch by yourself. You gotta have two folks to turn the rope. There's just some stuff you need help. And so I wanted to know, what can I leave as a legacy of my life? What does the world need most? And I realized what the world needs most right now is forgiveness. We need forgiveness. We need forgiveness. Because we've told our story over and over again of how we tried, and somebody got in the way. And so the first order of forgiveness for me is forgiveness of myself for doubting myself. Forgiveness of myself for doubting the Holy Spirit. Forgiveness of myself for not realizing that if God gave me these children, then the ways and means to take care of them. Just like my body, when I carried them in my belly, and God provided nutrients, everything that baby needed came from my body through me. And when the child was born, God didn't stop providing for that child simply because the child had to learn a new way of breathing and being here. The supply and all sufficiency was still there. Praise God. Some people think about pregnancy. The first thing is, where's the baby's daddy and what's he gonna do?
Well,
And if the baby's daddy, there are women who said, I can't do this without the baby's daddy. That's not true. In the black race,
all right now.
there's always been more women than men because the men had been sold off in slavery. And the mamas and the grandmamas had to raise those boys. And I had two sons that grew up, and both of them are taller than me. And I said to them I said, let me tell you one thing. You ain't gonna never talk back to me. I don't care how tall you get, I'll get a step ladder. And my son just fell out, Mama, how you gonna whoop somebody on top of a step ladder? That's not the point. The point is, no, it does take a village to raise a child. And this modern idea of just two folks in a house by themselves and everybody gonna raise a kid, that's not possible. And it puts a strain on people. But I just want you to know, I'm saying to you that all that you need is provided at all times. At all times, at all times, at all times. I'm an octogenarian, I'm an empath, I'm a griot, I'm a storyteller. I may not have the vocabulary that Ernest Holmes had, where he goes on and on, paragraph after paragraph, without a period or a comma or anything. Praise God. I have serious intuition, and the empath causes me to know things about people that they don't know. And so in my day, there was a time, if I had been born at a certain time, I would have been called a witch, because I know stuff that other people don't know, and I don't know how I know it myself. When practitioners pray, they say there's only one life, and that life is God. There's as much God in an ant as it is in an elephant, because all life is of God. There's one Father of us all, and therefore the President